What's going on, guys? It's Dan here from the Wolfpack, and today we're going to be talking about the game between Wolves and Bournemouth. This is the match review. As you can see, it is finished Wolves 0, Bournemouth 1, and one of those games really where you'd expect Wolves to do better, especially because of the lineup that we had in this game. It was a much better lineup for Wolves, and it's really disappointing to see a much stronger team from Arsenal underperform in basically every area, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. They set up in a rather bizarre fashion, set up in a back four, which was a bit bizarre straight away, and didn't seem to work throughout, really. You can understand why. Changes were made pretty swiftly, and reinforced those changes really in the second half, and Wolves just look a better team in general after that first half performance. And I mean, we're going to talk about the players, in just a minute, but let's just talk about the actual game itself. So let's talk about that first half, because I think that's the one that we need to really talk about. As a possession sort of standpoint, obviously it doesn't look on paper like Wolves did an awful job. It looks like fairly even contest, and maybe even Wolves kind of dominated possession at some points. But then you look at every other stat: 11 shots, 1.12 xG, shots on target 5, big chances 2. Wolves, no big chances, no 2 shots on target. I mean, they weren't very good. Let's just say that. And 5 shots in general. And that really is all you need to know. All of these stats are all pro Bournemouth. All of them are. They were passing better than us. We made more passes, sure. But the trouble is we weren't doing the right things with those passes. And this is where it really matters, you see. They won pretty much all of the duels in the middle, especially in the middle. Throughout the pitch, for sure, but in that middle, Bournemouth were far superior to us. They made us look average at best. And when you look at that lineup again, and you tell me Gomez, Doyle and Lamina, that should be a solid midfield. I've always said, if you've got a midfield 3 of those guys, you've got a bit of everything, haven't you? You've got some people that are going to track back and win the ball for you, and then you've got some players that can, get forward, and then you've also got players that pick a pass and unlock a defence, and none of those things happened, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because we played as a back four, Lamina played quite a weird role, really. It meant that he was able to foray forward and help out Gomez and Doyle in like a diamond shape with Hwang at front. But the issue was when he started to dip backwards, Gomez and Kilman they couldn't really help him out, and they kind of left a lot for Lamina to do in this game. It was really bizarre to see them just really rely on players out of position when they're in your position, and you should be really spearheading that position and making it, making Lamina aware that you've got things under control. And for me, the back four today, it just didn't work at all. We were just absolutely dominated and weak, and just everything that you can think of that you've got to be as a defender or as a DM to really emphasize, strength. And it just, there's nothing like that in this performance at all. And that is ultimately why Bournemouth got that goal, which we'll talk about in a minute. But more importantly for Bournemouth, they were strong. They were really strong on the ball. And as soon as Wolves made a wayward pass, they were on us. They were absolutely on us. And we just had no answers for it. We had absolutely zero answers for how they could just cut through us like a hot knife through butter. It was almost embarrassing at times. We'll talk about players individually in a minute, but that is just unacceptable when you've played against Arsenal with the B side and performed really well and you know, shown a good account for themselves, and then literally you play this team and do nowhere near as good, nowhere near in that first half. Absolutely off it completely. It's arguably the worst half of football, I think, this season for Wolves. And that really shouldn't be the case against Bournemouth. I know Bournemouth have performed pretty well this season and they've got a lot to be proud of. And I mean, if that first half performance is anything to go by, you know, they deserve to win the game. And we'll talk about the second half performance, and I'm sure we'll talk about what everyone's going to think I'm going to be talking about for majority of this video, and we'll go over those things shortly. But if I've got to talk about that first half performance, or at least just leave you with one more thing from that first half performance, it's that we got it wrong. The system was wrong. The personnel was wrong. Playing players that just, they either look absolutely shattered or they're just not interested. Sometimes it's both. I think Sarabia isn't interested and he's also absolutely knackered. Hwang is not fit in the slightest. Nothing was sticking to him at all. Do you know what I'm saying? He was awful. Awful. And sometimes, like, yeah, it's probably not his fault because he isn't fit. And he's never been a good, like, outlet without someone like Cunha next to him or two wingers either side of him. As a lone 9, you know, he just didn't perform at all. And we'll go out, like I said, a million times, but we will go over in depth all of the players. But as for a half, I thought there was certain players that just didn't perform, did not perform at all. So yeah, let's talk about that second half. In fact, no, let's talk about their goal. So their goal happened. And honestly, it was a decent goal from Semenyo because he's in a decent position, but it shouldn't happen. There was a few players sort of guilty of giving the ball away too much, but this was more so just not being in the right area and just not covering enough ground, and that was Semedo, which is really unfortunate because over the last 2 games, he's not been great. The last 2 games he's played even, he's not been great. And I do think he's carrying a bit of an injury. And that's probably not helped him. But he's also not a fullback. He's a wing-back. So playing him as a fullback when you've got Ait-Nouri covering his ass when he needs to didn't really strengthen his game at all. Kind of left him wayward for the goal. The goal is, yes, Semedo needs to cover his ground more and block the really weak pass, to be honest. Like if it's fizzed across ground, then I kind of excuse the goal, but it wasn't. It was a very weak pass from the wing. And the player that we're going to talk about is, of course, my favourite this season. My God, Max Kilman. Because, again, making mistakes. And this one was probably the worst of them all. Because as a defender, you're told if you don't know what to do with the ball when it's coming at you and you're not sure about your awareness around you, then you just boot it one. Do you know what I'm saying? You just absolutely whale it somewhere, anywhere. But you know what you don't do? You don't just pass it very weakly from a crap touch straight into the path of Semenyo. You don't do that. And he did. And that ultimately was Wolves' downfall. Because as soon as we went 1-0 down, mate, it could have been loads more. Had it not been for Jose Sarr in that first half, we would have been 4-0 down. Simple as that. Sarabia had an effort wide. Mate, forced a good save. But other than that, there wasn't enough created. And it's all down to that system. Let's talk about the second half. So, in the second half, Wolves improved in pretty much all areas. And I'll tell you why they improved. So, there were some substitutions made. Doherty came on for Santi Bueno, who was carrying an injury. And just that one substitution, which was really strange because Doc's not really been performing very well at all, meant that Aït-Nouri could cut back in again. Semedo went out wide, and it meant that, you know, we didn't have a centre-back as a full-back. And it meant that Doherty was in his natural position. We went back to a back five or back three with your centre-backs. And it just made more sense, and it just made us a lot more solid. And I actually thought Doherty played really well. So that substitution made a big difference. But it wasn't really the personnel coming on that made the difference. It was the fact that we changed the system and looked a lot better. So yeah, the second half, as you can see, possession-wise, Wolves, so much better, 66% possession. But not just having possession, having shots on target. And yeah, not a great deal, but, you know, you're at least trying at that point. Do you know what I mean? There was some really positive passing. The passing became a lot better. Basically, everything became a lot better in that second half. However, this Wolves team at the moment, when you concede, it's not just an uphill battle. It's like an up mountain battle. Like it's up Everest battle. Because we're not the best at scoring goals at the moment, because obviously with all the players injured. But there's also this very not never say die attitude anymore. It's kind of faded. That attitude that we used to have, the never say die attitude, has kind of faded out with all the with all the results and all the things going not so much our way. It's created a bit of an issue, hasn't it? But yeah, let's talk about the second half. I thought that obviously Wolves performed better, and there were some things that happened that we need to talk about. And you know what the really annoying thing is? Yeah, is I had a really good time at Molineux. I had a box with one of my friends, and you know it was really really cool. I'd never been in a executive box before, and you know got to see how the other half live sort of thing, and I'm really really thankful for his invite and everything. And it was a really great great evening with like an old friend. Then, but the trouble was, you got to see the ugly side again of the VAR. And I really didn't want to talk about it again this season. But they can't help themselves, can they? They cannot help themselves. They just want to make it all about that. All about the drama. All about the results of a bad VAR decision. Or sometimes, like, just poor officiating in general. But when the two meet each other, and that's what happened a lot in this game, it is just carnage. And what I was referring to about being in a box is that they had a TV in the room, and they were looking at the footage. So every time there was a contentious decision, every time that we went to VAR, they were disappearing into the box and looking at the television. So I followed them. I thought, you know what, I'll have a look. And to my surprise, you can see everything. You can see what's going on. So if there's a VAR check happening, you can see everything. Now, why? And this is my question: why is it people that are watching it through a broadcast are treated better than the people who are spending their hard-earned money to go and watch it in a stadium? We are literally making the club tick by having our money in the turnstiles. And you're telling me it's better really to just watch it on TV? Because if there's a VAR decision, you're just absolutely unaware of everything. You are literally sitting there with your fingers up your arse trying to guess what's happening, and you just get a simple little screen with checking goal or checking offside or a reason, but there's no picture for that reason. And I mean, we're going to talk about the VAR decisions in a minute, but I don't understand why they don't just show us in the stadium. If they have the footage, just show us. Now, I've got something to say. I was speaking to a Wolves associate. I won't name them, but they were saying that the reason that they can't put it on screens is because the Premier League are scared that it will cause basically scenes, like ugly scenes in the stands. And I said to him, it's worse not showing us, because the fear of the unknown hurts more, because you feel cheated, because you're not seeing it. And then when it's too late, you can't protest about it. Do you know what I mean? So they just need to show us. The communication needs to be better. I don't know how. It's so easy as well. And the idea that they've came up to Premier League teams and told them the reason as to why they don't show the decisions on the screen, it made me feel a bit sick. Because the trouble is with that, right, is that now, if there is a decision, you're just going to be constantly thinking, I better watch that on the telly. You know, I better get my phone out and have a look on the telly, because, you know, they're not going to show us here because it might cause a fuss. But why is it causing a fuss, Premier League? Why is it causing a fuss? That's my question. And the reason it's causing a fuss is because your decisions, they aren't right. And even when they are right, it takes too long. And you give that window of uncertainty. And if you have a window of uncertainty, then it's not clear and obvious. It's not a clear and obvious error if it takes that long to decide whether it's an issue or not. And if you're too scared to show fans who have paid money to not show it on the screens because you feel like they'll kick up a fuss, maybe get decisions right. Maybe don't make wrong decisions, or maybe think about common sense when it comes to making these decisions. Because if you make a right decision and it goes against the team that you worried about upsetting, I can guarantee you, if you show them evidence as to why that decision's wrong, they won't bat an eyelid. They won't care. They won't give a shit, because the right decision has evidence. and there's nothing more you can say. But if you're hiding it behind broadcaster screens, that looks weird. I'm sorry, it does. If you think it's going to upset us not showing it rather, it makes it worse not showing it. Trust me. I promise you it really does. Anyway, that's my rant about that situation. Now let's rant about the actual event. So basically, in a good flowing move from Wolves, from a throwing, there's a really good bit of link-up play between Matt Doherty, Matheus Cunha, and Semedo. And it's a nice little bit of play. It's a nice bit of fluid football, which was missing for a long time in the game. So it was a really welcome thing to see. And then it led to an opportunity where Hwang sticks it in the net with his head, and it's a cracking header, cracking cross from Semedo, and no one protests. Just like the West Ham game, no one says a word, right? But you just know. I celebrated it for a bit, but then I looked and I thought, this doesn't look right. So, the ref didn't look too sure about it. And it's because he was getting an earful from Stockley Park again. Because they want to get involved. I don't know why they want to get involved. But they do. And, okay, let's talk about it. Let's break it down. Yeah. So in that play, there's a pass from Doherty from Cunha to Doherty to Semedo, and then it ends up in the net from a cross from Semedo. Okay, so there's a few actions before the actual goal. Now we'll come back to that in a second. The action in question as to what disallowed the goal is a very stupid thing from Matheus Cunha. I'll be honest, it is. To lash out at a player. But even though, there's a little bit of violence to that, isn't there? Swinging your arm out at a player is just not on. And, he's lucky to get away with just a yellow, really. But the issue is that enough to disallow a goal? Because no, he doesn't. He's trying to stop Matheus Cunha by holding him. That's already a foul in play. Matheus Cunha then reacts to that. So really, it's a 50-50 decision, isn't it? At that point, and it probably should have been called as a foul, but it wasn't. The linesman was literally right next to the situation and didn't say a word. And then all of the play happens between the three people. And it goes in, and then it goes to VAR. And they're like, you need to check it on the screen. And it just takes an absolute age for him to come up with a decision. He's literally watching the screen like he's literally watching his favourite soap opera. He is that engaged in that TV. I've got a video of it, and I'm not even kidding you. He's just looking at it mindlessly. And they slow it down so you can see his hand out. But look, I already said that it was a bit of a stupid thing that Matheus Cunha did, right? He doesn't actually collide with the player, though. So, if they collided with the player went down, it wouldn't have been an issue. But the player in question that it's happened to didn't bat an eyelid. He carried on. He tried to stop the cross. And even when the goal went in, he just walked towards the centre circle like it was nothing. So, it's a really annoying thing for a goal to be disallowed from that, because it's almost like you're going through it with a fine-tooth comb to try and find something. Do you know what I mean? At that point, you're literally going in depth, going, ooh, there's got to be something in there. What is there? What is there? Go back a few more actions. Ah, yes, look at that. Do you know what I mean? That's not what VAR's for. VAR is for a very clear and obvious error. That error doesn't lead to the goal. If Matheus Cunha doesn't do that, he still gets free. He's just pissed off because he's been held. He's trying to shrug him off. It's a silly thing to do. It is. But does it really matter? Because the player can't stop him from getting further on. And there's like 3 more passes after that before the goal goes in. So why go back that far? Do you know what I'm saying? That's what's annoying. And I also think to myself, if that happened to United, are they going back 4 or 5 actions? Nah. They're not. If it happened against United, yeah. But if it happens for United, they're not going back several actions to see whether a goal's disallowed. Play just resumes. And it feels like with Wolves, they have to look. They have to make sure that there's something. You know what I mean? Now, the other one is a red card. Straight red card. Gets absolutely taken out, Doc does. Studs up. Everyone's going mental, and they still check it through VAR. Is there a reason for a ref at this point, guys? What is the ref there for? Because he could make a decision and it still goes through VAR. So you may as well just have a match where it's only covered by cameras. Because he was a dreadful referee again. I'll be honest, he was an awful referee. You know, he's been absolutely shocking recently. He's made some absolute calamitous errors for Forest against Everton. And then his very next game, he makes errors throughout the game. There was some times where he was stopping play because a player was going over holding their face, but you could tell it was play acting, and he was almost like playing towards it like it was an issue. There was just these really weird situations where a professional referee just carries on with the game. The game's too soft now. Any tackle where a player goes over and it's a foul instantly. They have no backbone whatsoever because they're covered by VAR. So they know any decision that they make is backed straight away. And if you go up to them and say anything towards any of the decisions that happen, then they literally just go, well, you got a yellow card, or you've got a ban, or you've got a fine because you've talked to me. Because you've not been happy with the situation and you've come up and talked to me like a civilized person. But no, you've got a ban now. It's an absolute joke, and I like the amount of times now that we've been just absolutely shafted. And like I said, in the first half performance, Wolves didn't deserve anything from the game. And Bournemouth were an incredibly good side. They really, really did a good job against Wolves. But when Wolves looking like they're really trying for it, like during that goal, and you don't give it because of actions that happened 3 or 4 passes before, you're ruining the game. I was at the stadium and it's so toxic. You're not making the game better. And Bournemouth fans will say, well, what do you mean it was the right decisions? It wasn't the right decision to disallow the goal. If you were going to book Cunha like they did, you should have just sent him off. If it was such an issue, if it was a bad thing that he shouldn't have done, then he should have got a red. If you're only getting a caution for something, how is that enough to stop the goal? To bring it all the way back for like a few passes and be like that fussed about it. It just screams just unintelligence. It screams you don't know what you're doing. Because you don't. They're awful. The officiating in this country is absolutely dreadful, and it's only getting worse. Anyway, that's enough about that. We score another one right at the end, and it's disallowed for offside. And I've looked at it, and look, he is offside, but it's tight again. And in that game, it just looked like nothing was ever going to go for Wolves. There was no luck going for us at all. Even when we started to try and play our game and, expand in different ways and use different tactics that Gary O'Neill was fed into us, nothing worked. And luck wasn't with us when we needed it. And VAR absolutely hate us. And I just don't... I've heard so many people say they might not even renew their season tickets because of these sort of decisions. And I don't blame them. Because you go to a match to enjoy yourself and be entertained. And you don't know whether to celebrate a goal. You don't know whether, something in the build-up happened at some point where it touched someone's hand or there was a foul or anything, where they can just go back and back and back and back and back. And it's so frustrating, man. And it's just killed the season. I know Wolves haven't been performing well, and I know some of that is due to our injuries. But you've got to help us a little bit with the officiating because it's just subpar. Every single game is just laughable. The things that they're saying and the things they're deciding, and it's just laughable. It's so embarrassing to be involved in it. Honestly, the best game of the season was the West Brom game. And it wasn't because we won. It was because if a goal happened or an action happened in the game, you could celebrate it and know it's not getting overturned because the ref on the pitch and the linesmen on the pitch were doing their jobs. The officiators don't need to do their jobs now because they're so defended by VAR that they don't even need to do their jobs. And I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that this has taken such a long time to talk about. But in a game where the first half, Wolves were dreadful. In the second half, we pulled it back a little bit. And we tried. And we managed to almost get something from the game. And it's just been pulled from under our feet again. And it's so annoying. The stop, start nature of the game now. It's just so boring to watch. And everyone's thinking, where are these injuries coming? Where the injuries are coming from the fact that the game has no momentum anymore. It's like, the best analogy I can say, you're playing FIFA, yeah? Now imagine you're playing FIFA, but every single time there's a foul, or every time there's a goal, the game pauses itself. Okay? And then there's a little timer and it tells you why. And then the game resumes. Are you arsed after it takes so long over and over again? No, you're not. You're turning it off. So what's the difference? Why is there a pause mode to football? Why? It's so frustrating, guys. I'm sorry for talking about it for so much, but it's ruining the game that I love so much. Player ratings. I thought Sarr was phenomenal throughout the game. Wasn't at fault for the goal and prevented some really good opportunities from Bournemouth. And arguably was our best player on the pitch for the first half. To be honest, it may as well have just been them versus Sarr, because our passes were so wayward. They weren't going anywhere near a player to create anything. No one was making forward runs. And when they were too slow off it. The midfield was non-existent. So you might as well have just played Sarr on his own. Defence had massive holes in it because it just doesn't work as a back four. But yeah, Sarr was great. Bueno, it's hard to explain, hard to really judge him just because of the fact he went off injured. You know what I mean? He went off with a hamstring issue, so he probably was carrying that, and that's really not fair to judge his performance if he's carrying an injury. But I suppose you could say that across all of them. Kilman dreadful again. How he gets a 7.5 is absolutely beyond me. Yes, okay, he made a good few tackles. He made a few good blocks. But he's dreadful. He's crap at getting back. He's crap at clearing the ball. Clearly, because you saw the goal. His positioning is shite. In a back four, he literally is absolutely useless. Useless. So Totti Gomez. Probably one of the worst performances he's had for a long time as well. But again, I'm going back to the fact that it's a back four. None of these players work in a back four. And maybe it's because Santi Bueno's carrying that injury. But it's just not good enough, man. From Totti Gomez, he's been a solid performer this season, and he on the ball, he just didn't look comfortable at all. Semedo caught out of position far too much, but again, definitely injured, definitely carrying injury. Wasn't getting up anywhere near as much as I've seen him do. Sometimes as well, he was really rash with his tackles. I felt that across the board. Felt like we were just fouling because we couldn't be asked to get the ball sometimes. Mario Lemina had a poor first half and a decent second half, and it's because he got pushed forward. And he got back when he needed to, but sometimes in this game, especially, like I said at the start, people weren't backing each other up. They were just letting players do whatever they want and not helping. Sarabi was one of the worst players on the pitch. One of the worst players on the pitch. And I was right next to his box with his family in. And I could barely hear them calling his name. So, dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. His touch was awful. He gave the ball away more than any player on the pitch. He was just moaning all the time as well. Every time he fell over, moaning. Get up and get the ball. Joe Gomez got a 6.2, right? But what Joe Gomez does that Sarabia doesn't is if he loses the ball, he goes for it and tries to get it back again. Sarabia just puts his head on his hands. He's like this all the time. Dude, just keep playing. As the whistle blown or something. You lost the ball, go get it back. You learned this as a kid. Awful. Absolutely dreadful. Joe Gomez didn't look fit. Looked like off pace completely. Didn't look fit at all. Didn't really do anything, to be honest. Which is really, really unlike Joe Gomez. He normally has a decent performance if he's next to Lemina or even Doyle, but he just... awful. Doyle? I mean, if you don't give him the ball and no one's around him, he's not great. If you don't give him help to play the ball back and forward, like as 1-2s or whatever, or create some space through some clever build-up play, he's not a good footballer. It wasn't a game for him, if I'm honest. I like Doyle when we're playing teams that, are going to be a little bit more, with the ball and try and get through you. They just seem to give us the ball and realise that we're not going to do anything with it and ultimately give it away and then capitalise on mistakes. And Doyle was just not the right kind of player for that at all. And we'll talk about who was in a second. Aït-Nouri, carrying an injury, but I tell you what, he got up and down the wing over and over again, covering Semedo. And then when he got cut back, he was the only player literally was like, nah, this wing's mine. And I love that from him. His work ethic is insane. Insane. And he's probably the one player I don't want to go more than anything. More than Neto. I don't want to lose Aït-Nouri. Because I just don't see a player in our team or even in the league that would replace him to his level at all. Hwang Hee-chan, we talked about him a little bit. Obviously, good finish for the disallowed goal. In a good position, you know. But other than that action, pedestrian. You know, just nothing stuck to him. And he was just up there like a headless chicken running around for scraps the whole game. Not good enough. And then we look at the substitutions. And this is where it gets interesting. We played Arsenal and we played Boubacar Traoré. We played Arsenal and we played Chirawa. You know, we played Arsenal, we played Doherty. We played Arsenal, we played Cunha. All of these players that played against Arsenal that played really well was rested, and probably with good reason, you know. But when they came on, the game transformed. That's where the goal came from. The disallowed goal, the second one, comes from a clever pass by Traoré. Boubacar Traoré is fast becoming our best midfielder. Let that sink in a little bit. Traoré is one of the most exciting prospects in Wolves for me. He looks a cut above the under-21s. He doesn't fit in the under-21s anymore. He is a first-team player. I think next season, you're going to see a really good player in there. Because he's alert. And him and Boubacar Traoré link up so well. Like, as soon as one of them wins the ball, the other one's demanding the ball, and they're just getting us up the pitch. Whereas, why the hell was Lemina, Gomez, and Doyle not producing that kind of performance? And these guys were. It baffled me. It was really bizarre, to be fair. And then you look who was left on the bench. You know, Okudoa, 15, Holman, 18, 19, and then you've got Hugo Bueno, who's definitely going to be on loan next season. Still got some awful injuries. Craig Dawson, we're missing like crazy. I mean, Pedro Neto's a given, isn't it? Come on. Like, if we had Pedro Neto for half of these games, we'd be in such a good situation. Now, this is the real bugger, is that leaves us in a really shitty situation table-wise, because Bournemouth have gone 2 places above us. Yes, okay, Brighton have got a game in hand, so have Chelsea, but we want to finish higher this season. With the first half performance that we gave today, we were no better than anyone underneath us. Truly. And you can't even really moan about the lineup, because we're arguably only missing 1 or 2 players. So we really need to show something at Luton. And if we don't, and the season just fizzles out, I fear that Aït-Nouri will be sold and all these different assets will be sold. And I do fear that Gary O'Neill will just not even bother signing a new contract, because other teams are looking at him, and rightly so. And Fosun need to back him. And if they don't back him and he leaves, I absolutely don't blame him at all. Lopetegui was a different situation, a different kettle of fish. He was backed. He got given Cunha for 50 million. And he left behind a team that had quite a lot of quality in it. And yeah, we sold a load, but we were trying to save our arse from, you know, the all of the financial situations and rulings. And to be fair, all of those things now, you know, they look worth it. We got rid of Matheus Nunes and got Doyle. Yeah, okay, his performance to that game was awful, but on the grand scheme of things, for 4.5 million, you're looking at a player really that's a first team squad player that, to be fair, Matheus Nunes is not much better than on his day. He could probably his potential's better. Matheus Nunes, his 100% potential's better, but he squandered that completely when he left for City, and that's left Doyle in a position where he's getting game time, he's getting minutes in his legs. You know, he's getting all the experience around him in Lamina, players like that. And it's ultimately making him a better player. So there are some positives to go with the rest of the season. You know, we've only got really... I just really want us to get a win before the end of the season, because if we can manage to get a win, then you're at least looking at the season like, okay, fair enough, you know, it fizzled out, but, you know, we had all those injuries. And other than that freak game against Bournemouth, you know, we've looked all right since. That's the only really shining light, is that if we beat Luton and then, you know, we go on a bit of a run where we don't lose games, I feel like it's not a bad season. But if we lose all of the games now, all the way up until the end, I think that's really poor from Wolves. And yeah, we've been absolutely struck like crap with officiating, VAR, and injuries. And they've all played a horrible part in the downfall of us. But sometimes you've got to shake all that off and look at what you've got. And what we have got, especially in that game against Bournemouth, is a good team that should be performing better than that first half performance. I'm sorry. It's just not acceptable in any standard at all. You can argue about all of the things that have gone against Wolves this season as much as you want, but if you're going to perform like that, then you have no excuse. That's simple as that. Dreadful first half, better in the second, but never really looked like we'd win the game. It always looked like if we got a goal, it would probably be a 1-1 and both teams would be happy with it. It never looked like Wolves were really pushing for a win. Maybe towards the end, but you could say that's because we were trailing. You know, does that second goal even happen if we're trailing? Probably not. We sit back and go for the point. So, not a good performance from Wolves. Worrying signs for Wolves in general. And really, if we don't beat Luton, then questions have got to be asked, in my opinion. Because if you didn't put that team out, I'd be thinking fair play, you know. But that team is our best 11, all but missing maybe 2 players. So, not good enough from Wolves. Yeah, pretty much all I got to say about that game. So yeah, guys, if you enjoyed that video, I really, really appreciate if you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends and everything. We've been really working hard on the Wolfpack, myself included, really just bringing as much Wolves content to you as possible, really. I've been, you know, upgrading everything, you know, like from the camera to all these different things, and the real reason for it is because I really want, you know, this community to do well, and I think it will. But it's going to take you guys to push us over those lines and reach those goals. So really appreciate everything you're doing so far. But if you could push it a little bit more, that would be absolutely awesome and so appreciated across the board. Please follow us and like us on the various platforms. We are the Wolfpack WWFC across every platform going, pretty much. And yeah, some content that you should be looking forward to in terms of YouTube. We've got got another podcast coming, a Live with the Wolfpack episode with some special guests on Wednesday, which will be live across the board, including Spotify as well, which will be good. And obviously match reviews, match previews. I'm trying to do some match vlogs as well, but after what happened with the incident in the South Bank, I'm unsure whether I'm happy about doing one of those. But I did film some footage from the Bournemouth game, but kind of up in arms really to do those sort of content just yet. So apologies if you're expecting anything like that, but it might take a little bit while for me to really go ahead and do something like that again. So, and I appreciate the fact that you've had to sit through quite a lengthy video, to be fair, 50 odd minutes. But I just feel like there was a lot to talk about, some contentious decisions, and just some really bad performance from Wolves. And hopefully you enjoyed it anyway, guys. And until the next one, I'll catch you on the next one in a bit. When the wolves come out to play.